Hello, this is Taha.
This is Anaina,
This is Movie Masala.
and we're here to yap at you about films we watched recently.
And today we're doing A Complete Unknown.
The new Bob Dylan film with Timothée Chalamet.
You tell me you dropped out of
I
college.
didn't drop out of college.
You came here with nothing but a guitar. You never talk about your family, your past, besides the carnival.
People make up their past, Sylvie. They remember what they want. They forget the rest.
I tell you everything. My folks, my sister, the street I grew up on.
Yeah, and I never asked you about any of it. Well, you think that stuff defines you?
What I come from?
So, this film is directed by James Mangold, written by James Mangold and Jay Cox, based on a book by Elijah Wald of Dylan's biography. Dylan also basically signed off on this film as well. He has posted tweets about this capturing a version of him that he was very much okay. He had final say over the script. So this is very much Dylan's biopic for himself in some way as well, right? And first things first. Oh my God, did I need subtitles for this film that were not there?
No, I hate when in an English film as well. It's like, I just enunciate, my guy. Or I understand accents, but Jesus.
I swear to God, I did not get half of the dialogue that came out of Timothée Chalamet's mouth. I was struggling. I don't know how anyone understood that. And I understand that's how Dylan talked. That's fine. But oh my God, just for God's sake, just put something. I could not get it.
Exactly. It's like if you know someone is hard to understand, put subtitles. Just in a basic, I'm going to say this is a basic opinion as well. Controversial opinion that a lot of film bros don't like. Everything should be subtitled.
Everything should be subtitled. 1,000%. Oh my God. It does not hamper your experience at all. If you can watch a Japanese film with subtitles, I don't understand why you can't watch an English film with subtitles, and it helps most people. Anyways, second aside, I said that's why I had to focus a lot about much more on the performances and the small things that the characters were doing in order to understand. And I think that is a great highlight for the film. I think the entire cast does their job really well. And what James Mangold does really well is fully show you and not tell you a lot. So what happens is you see very small little reactions in these characters. You see different aspects of their lives unfolding through their reactions, through their acting. Not something they necessarily say, but something you just inherently pick up from their performances. This is true within Timothée Chalamet's performances as Bob Dylan. This is also true as Edward Norton's performance. Elle Fanning as well, who plays Zoe in the film, who's amalgamation or represented as one of Dylan's love interests. It's not a real person, but
like a combination of all of them ever.
Kinda, in some sense, right? Monica Barbaro plays Joan Bees, who's another folk artist who's also both enamored with Dylan while also has this competition with Dylan as well. And the film's central theme revolves around basically Dylan not wanting to be boxed in by how people's expectations for him. And he comes up as this folk singer who he sees as this person is going to get folk music to the masses. And he does do that, right? And how eventually he becomes tired of doing it as well. And you see him becoming more and more agitated that he's put into this box and how people want more of the same for him. I think this is where the film's strongest thematic storyline, and this is something that the film continuously focuses on, and I think delivers on it as well, right? You can, based on his end performance at the Newport Folk Festival, where he just goes out, he just does what he wants to do, and it has the reaction. This film doesn't necessarily end on a Bohemian Rhapsody type note where Bohemian Rhapsody is performed at the end and it's rapturous applause. It ends on this tension. It ends on this tension of, because he is diversifying, he's changing from who he is, a lot of people will not accept him because of that, right?
I think I've heard Timothée Chalamet say in interviews that Dylan was a complete enigma, a mystery, and that's what he wanted to be. And his constant changing was a part of that. It was he was no, I don't want myself to be explicable to everyone. And I think what you're saying kind of makes sense in that context.
Yeah, exactly. I think another thing though with that is, again, I like Dylan's music. I have not heard all of his discography, but I like it, what I've heard. I don't know much about him though, right? And I think this film will also not necessarily tell you that much about him in that sense as well. And it's not the fact that you don't get a feel for who he is as a person, but you can't come out and, aside from telling me 3 or 4 things that happened in his life, get a feel for his like entire life, how his personal life and what ended up there. And again, that comes from the part that it's a complete unknown, right? It's the fact that he has this enigma of him that he presents to people. But I think that is something which the film is attempting to replicate, but because of it, I just did not feel that attached to Chalamet Dylan. And I don't think it's necessarily Timothée Chalamet's fault here, because I do think his acting portraying this character is very well done. Again, I don't know much about Bob Dylan, but I think it never felt like a caricature. It felt like a full-on character who had flaws and who had things that made people gravitate towards him. But in the end, like, there are a lot of things which I felt should have been more explored with the character. One thing of that is Dylan's influence on civil rights and the influence it had on him. So again, this is something when he was with Sylvie, he gets more into civil rights. During that time, it's Martin Luther King's. He attends the famous speech there. But I'm never sure how much that really sunk into his life. And again, a biopic is not going to tell me everything about this film, but it feels like it's dipping in and out of things, which for people who are huge Bob Dylan fans, I don't think that's going to be an issue, because you already know this. It's like you're being given cliff notes on like this happened, this happened, this happened. You don't necessarily need to stay on each thing because that would be too long. But for someone like me who doesn't know that much, it feels like it's not exploring anything.
I think in that sense, it boils down to what was the purpose of the film.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And it made me, I was thinking when I finished the film as well, of like, who is this film really for? Is it to introduce people to Bob Dylan and who he was? Or is it for his fans to get an understanding of like who he was and like basically capture Bob Dylan? And I don't think that it only does one thing. I do think it's for the fans. Firstly, foremostly, like most biopics are, to be very honest, are for his fans. And for them, I think this is a good film. I've seen like checking with on like, as I've seen on like multiple message boards and everything, Bob Dylan fans mostly overwhelmingly do like this film. They like the performances, they like what it captures. And I feel for a lot of people, it does one thing really well. If it doesn't introduce you to Bob Dylan, it introduces you to his music really well. And I think this is also where the film shines, because it puts a lot of emphasis on Dylan's writing and songs. So it doesn't have like just 4 or 5 songs. It has a lot of songs that get played in snippets that you see throughout the film, and you see how he wrote them, where he was when he was writing them. I think it does that really well. Well, when I said that, yes, it doesn't fully explore how Dylan was impacted by his surroundings, but the glimpses it does give you really do a lot to contextualize his writing really well. And I think that is honestly another highlight of the film as well, that you really do get a feel for the era involved with Dylan existed in the 60s and the entire political context. And that also gives you a really good context for what changes him. So when he starts as this folk singer, you have America in a post-war period, elected Kennedy, a new leader. There's just exuberant, positive optimism in the air, right? And like trying to recall back to what we can be. And then the Cuban Missile Crisis happens. Kennedy gets assassinated. Martin Luther King gets assassinated. Everything feels like it's on a decline now. And that really impacts Dylan's writing, because it is a central point that I don't think his generation or the people that he starts playing to when he introduced electric guitar and stuff into his music are not the ones he was playing for before. And so because the times have changed, so has his music, and his music is reflecting the new people. And again, I feel it's also done really well, because the song that he performs at Newport for the first time is Times They Are Changing. And the second time he performs a different song. And it's so well done that symbolism there, I think it's really well done.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great film. I'm anticipating watching it once again.
Yeah, I mean, well, detailing all of this, I kind of convinced myself more that I liked it than I initially came out with. I still think, for me personally, there's part of this films that feel like they drag a bit. There's part of these films that I feel like I wish it explored a bit more. I'm telling you this. I'm like, I understand that basically the issue is not necessarily that the film is inherently bad in any way. It's just, I don't think I was the target audience for this film. And I think I can tell you objectively some things that it does really well. But in the end, if you like Bob Dylan, this is a film for you. If you like his music and everything, you'll like this film. But I don't expect everyone going into this to be swayed by the film. That's it.
I mean, yeah, not every film is for everyone, and it's just our duty to discover what is for us and what is not.
So again, hyped film, Oscar buzz surrounding it. Let's see how it does. But yeah, this film will be in the
Award circuit.
This film in the award circuit. It will be in the chatter for at least a few months. So you'll have time to see it, I hope.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was produced solely by us. Musical assets from Pixabay. See you again next time.